What up and welcome to Rama Screen YouTube channel, and here's my review of Netflix's new limited series, Death by Lightning. Let's rock this. You know, when it comes to the unfortunate history of the assassinations of American presidents, people often only remember Abraham Lincoln and JFK, which is understandable because those were two big prominent names, and the cases about their deaths are still the topic of conversations to this day. But people often forget William McKinley and James Garfield, who were also assassinated while they were in power. Which begs the question, damn, the Secret Service must have been crappy back then if they kept failing to protect the presidents time and time again post-Lincoln. Anyway, this new miniseries from Netflix is about James Garfield. I've already watched the entire 4-hour-long episodes, and let me tell you, this is an imperfect yet compelling biopic of a man who could have, should have, would have been great if his administration had not been short-lived. And a lot of the narrative's effort to make the themes timely and relevant are actually quite effective, which kind of solidifies the old phrase of history repeating itself. Again, don't get me wrong, this is not a perfect show. It has its shortcomings, but Death by Lightning is a well-intentioned drama that perhaps is a bit too naive about the ideals that this country is supposed to represent. Created, written, and executive produced by Mike Makowski and based on Candice Miller's book Destiny of the Republic, Death by Lightning is a drama series that brings to life the epic and stranger-than-fiction true story of James Garfield, reluctant 20th President of the United States, and his greatest admirer, Charles Guiteau, the man who would come to kill him. Starring Michael Shannon, Matthew Macfadyen, Nick Offerman, Bradley Whitford, Shea Whigham, and Betty Gilpin. Some more positives. Performance-wise, most of the actors are pretty solid, especially Michael Shannon, who flawlessly embodies that calm, compassionate, and graceful strength and wisdom of President Garfield. Shea Whigham is fiery and underrated as the political opponent who keeps torpedoing Garfield's administration. The West Wing alum, Bradley Whitford, cannot seem to escape any political roles, but in this one, as Garfield's closest advisor, Bradley just gives his adequate, doing what he does best, berating everybody around him. Betty Gilpin didn't get to shine much in the first couple of episodes, but once the tragedy struck Garfield, Gilpin, who plays his wife, finally has her memorable, powerful moments. It's just too bad that the script sidelines her for much of the show. If anything, she's a bit underutilized in my opinion. And Matthew Macfadyen, who plays Charles Guiteau, is electric. Matthew's performance is a masterclass in capturing delusions of grandeur, and the result is that you, the audiences, would feel scared of and sorry for Charles. All of the characters on this show could have been one-dimensional caricatures, but that's not the case at all, and the interactions between them are palpable and chilling. This is one of those dialogue-heavy dramas in which the actors successfully manage to deliver their lines with strong conviction. Excellent production design and costume design, although the show could have looked a bit more gritty, but I think it's by choice because they were going for a more romanticized period piece. The political intrigues are meticulous, engaging, and cleverly structured. The big speeches are eloquent and impactful. Death by Lightning is also a magnetic storytelling that at times moves like a true crime thriller because of the unnerving anticipation for the tragedy that we all know is about to happen. The part that I think is underwhelming is the medical malpractice that contributes to James Garfield's death. History does argue that the doctor is just as much to blame as Charles Guiteau, and so that part or those scenes are infuriating. But the show also makes the mistake of making the doctor be some kind of a small blip or a character that just comes and goes. The way that the story deals with post-Civil War racism is also a bit surfacey. There was room to double down on its significance, but for some reason, it chooses to just touch on it without diving deep. Having said that, The parallels between this show and what's currently happening in our society today is remarkable. The fragility of democracy, the political corruption, and how some folks are just grifters because they are all about that access to power. And so, despite the few shortcomings I mentioned earlier, I still highly recommend this show to you because of what it conveys about mental health, what it warns us about medical negligence, what it says about the burden of leadership, and what it tells us about using politics for aspirational purposes. And most importantly, it reaffirms my long-held belief that the ones who deserve power are the ones who seek power the least. So yeah, overall I give Death by Lightning the rating of 3.5 out of 5. An exceptional, passionate, character-driven historical thriller elevated by some of the best performances you'll see on the small screen this year. Intellectually riveting.